with this ministerial meeting about Palestine, we would like to invite Mr. Taller Ahmed, who is gonna provide us a testimony of the situation in Gaza.
Thank you for the opportunity to
Thank you for the opportunity to speak in this important event. I am a PhD in emergency, a doctor in emergency center. I have been working in Gaza since 2008. Recently, last year, I was in 2024 in teleSUR hospital. I have no intention to be here today, and and the figures that you are just familiarized with, but I think that these estimates do not tell the real stories of what's been happening in Gaza, because everything that happens there is horrible, unbearable, but time here is limited, so my words cannot express the real devastation there. So my intention is just to transmit a portion of the reality that they are just living through, and so they have been just obstructing the possibility of survival there in Gaza. So then we can just reflect deeply of what's been happening there, because as a Palestinian, the words used are just dehumanizing. So let us understand what they say to cut off the water supply as a war tool. Imagine yourself, you are just a child that was killed while he was just cooing for water. So do you dare to say that this is a technical error? Would you go ahead without recognizing the injustice perpetrated against your child? So the head of the largest hospital in Gaza said, "I am running out of food for children, so I am beginning to save it because I've got 6 newborns, and if you were one of the parents of those newborns, let me tell you what happens when newborns are not nurtured adequately. Imagine that they have to fight for being alive when they are just monitoring, and they just cry desperately because every time they don't receive the food they need, those cries get weaker. So what can we say to those children killed, to those trucks that have the food for those children and are just parked out there? I'm sorry, we did everything we could. I was supposed to enter on June 3rd, and just talking with my colleagues with that child food. So I was just wearing, and inside my uniform I had some milk, but they refused that. They refused me to keep it them. So they have managed to survive miraculously, some, suffering from famine, and so they continue to survive. It is important to take into account that every day they are just suffering from famine. They are just suffering irreversible aftermaths of their mental and physical development. Any of us would put up with that our children be developed in that despicable way. So let's talk about the GFAH that faces bullets every day. And I said to my friends, don't go to certain places because they are just their onslaughts. And so people know that there are certain possibilities of that, but they cannot tolerate seeing people suffering from famine. But the bullets launched to the Humanitarian Foundation of Gaza by those forces so on a military uniform is the one that decides who's worthy of receiving food. People are being registered for them to eat, and Palestinians denounce that they are just attacking the health system. And so we must understand the aftermath of these attacks on hospitals in Palestine. Of each hospital attacked by military forces, we see that the pillars of the medical system has been hit. And so Dr. Malwana just returned and was killed. The Dr. Conchil, an expert that trained all young surgeons, and he was killed last week. And so, well, I thought how to address on this conference. I realized that I forgot certain names of my colleagues that were just killed in the latest months, but it is like that. Many health workers have been killed by the Israeli army. One of them was Saldim, a young physician who worked in Gaza, in central Gaza, and was assisting newborns. So they are just killing medical personnel, and that implies that hundreds of children won't receive the attention needed for having the best opportunity to survive. Many doctors have lost their lives after being tortured. Dr. Albors is an example of it. He was an orthopedic surgeon, famous one, and his body was found on the Ofred prison, naked after being tortured without a trial. Dr. Al-Fabriya, a pediatrician in northern Gaza, who is detained without a due process, and I talked to his lawyer, and he told me that his condition has been deteriorated and that he's still using the winter clothes when he was kidnapped in 2024, and that he lost weight and he was denied to access to a physician. And so this doctor must have been in the hospital assisting patients. And so after a ceasefire, we need these doctors. And we've got over 100 physicians and nurses that have been kidnapped. And all doctors and nurses that have been kidnapped, attacked, or injured, they are not included in the response. So how can we look for another day? What did Dr. Hassan do to receive that kind of treatment? He remained at the hospital. He didn't want to go when there were newborns in ventilators, in incubators. He saw how his child was murdered, and then he buried him in the facilities of the hospitals. So I refer that the medical system is being attacked, and the medicine supplied is being attacked, is being collapsing, and surgeons have been attacked. People remain without surgery, and those people in need continue to be displaced as sheep. Go to this area, go to that one. Take all your family, and with luck you could find a place nearby the sea. I just assisted paramedics that are victims of a double attack when they just hit buildings and then there's a second missile and hit them. And so they are being avoided from doing their work to rescue people. I knew two paramedics that were prevented from assisting a child, a 6-year-old child, and so they received all permits, and then the missile attacked and killed them, both of them. And so every time I speak, there is blood coming out of my mouth, so I don't want to stain my clothes. So my mom doesn't want me to stain my clothes. Yesterday in the night, someone called an emergency called to ask for help for saving them, and paramedics explained them that they couldn't have access to them. And so what would happen with those people that no one saved them, that they are just dying of famine? So how can we just look into the mirror? The lack of antibiotics, the lack of medicine. It seems that every week there is an emergency in which we have to focus on and do something about it. For me, there must be a ceasefire, and I hope that this fire come into effect in the coming days. So if bureaucratic people say that, well, we must change in the support of this cause, of this Palestinian cause, and I would like to conclude with a couple of cases in which I was involved that really captures the essence of how life is being attacked in Gaza. Yusuf was a 5-year-old child that was in his Khan Yunis home, asking his mom what were they gonna eat. So out of the blue, his home was hit and collapsed. The missile entered on the 4th floor, then lowered to the 3rd floor, and so the ceiling collapsed and Yusuf was trapped among the rubble. And so then they found the mother there on the floor, and one of his children survived, but the rescue for Yusuf continued, and eventually he was taken to the hospital in which his father, a doctor, was working. in the images, his mother was just running on the hospital, asking if someone has seen a curly hair, red hair curly, named Yusuf, and finally one of the workers brought his parents and to see Yusuf, but Yusuf was dead. And so his father closed his eyes and recomforted his mother. His younger brother was grabbing his father, beating him. I want to see Yusuf. And so he never had spent a day without his brother. But his brother never saw the body of Yusuf because their parents wanted them to remember him as a happy child. So, and the father said, my work is not to mourn for my child, but to help the living ones, to confront the situation. But finally, the Israeli army raided the hospital, besieged the hospital, and arrested Yusuf's father, and he's still in custody. Nayara was a child that was running, and she was hit, and her brother died, and her father lost his 2 legs, and Nayara was just injured on her knee. And her mother told me that they were running to the south because they were running from the Israeli army, and so they had to cross over that checkpoint, to be completely naked and give them all the money to the Israeli army, 300 shekels. I had the honor to accompany them to Egypt and then the United States, and we landed on New Jersey. I remember I was waiting there at the airport. I brought them some pizza, and in the United States pizza is awful. It's better in Gaza. But I remember that when we were at the airport, the mother told me that she got some good news, and she told me that the bodies of her 2 children were identified, and then when she returned to Gaza, she could visit both tombs. And so I conclude that there is an attack in the past, in the present, and in the future of the Palestinian people. Our homes, our universities, our museums, our religious sites are being attacked in the present, and we see the doctors, journalists, engineers being attacked, and our children are being shattered to pieces, murdered. Their future is being destroyed. So bringing justice is needed, but it is needed the support and solidarity for Palestinian entities, reassuring that institutions must survive to go ahead. That's what we need. How can we ensure that the effort to erase Palestinian people not to be successful? So the current dreams of Palestinian children can be described with these words. And our mission must be to change how they describe their dreams. When we ask about their dreams, I want my mother return from the sky. I hope that my other leg can grow up. So how can we grant that they have an opportunity in life? How can we ensure that those dreams become dreams of prosperity for the future? I think that the efforts of all present here, something that I want to communicate with all Palestinian professionals in Gaza, is that I hope that the urgent message must be translated into action, and that I hope that statements can continue to be taken into concrete actions, concrete real actions, and I hope that this occurs sooner than later. I hope that war must be stopped, and that the plan for next generations, we must not establish that precedent. Today is Palestinians, tomorrow must be any one of them.